If you have a disc bulge or a disc herniation, you probably want to do everything in your power to help it heal. And the good news is that the majority of them will heal if you let it. So I'm going to go over some strategies that will help, but please understand that there are different degrees of injury with varying stages, and they can all require slightly different approaches. So depending on the degree of injury or how long it's been an issue, there's stretches and positions that might be great for one person. It could be a little bit more irritating, not as beneficial for somebody else. Now I say this because I want to help you, but I also want you to be realistic that you may need to see a competent physician that specializes in spine health for a more individualized plan or more individualized instructions. Okay, that being said, let's get to some of the basics for a recent onset of disc-related low back pain. And here's what I consider to be number one. Rule number one, don't irritate it. And that is bending forward through the spine. That creates more bulging, so you should actually move more through your hips. You want to get your hips back, keep your spine straight, or keep your spine in a neutral position. And you can use dowel rods, your spine here, and train yourself to move hips back but keep your spine neutral. This really should be the way that you start to move and bend forward from here forward. And I do have a video in the description below that goes over this, what's called a hip hinge. So I recommend you watching that. Okay, number two, consider sitting upright. The forces in the low back are greater, or in the disc are greater when we're in a seated position. So when you sit, you especially don't want to sit in a rounded position, that spine rounded. You want to sit upright. And again, I have videos for that below. But those are the two things. I mean, really, that is, if you had a cut on your finger here, you wouldn't want to continue to open that cut, because you know that every time you open it, you have to start the healing process over again. Well, that's exactly what a lot of people with this kind of low back pain do. When they're doing toe stretches and things like that, they bend over, they're always flexing forward. They are aggravating themselves. And that leads me to rule number three, avoid stretching forward. Okay, rule number four for this acute low back pain, of course, control inflammation. If it's a recent onset and it's severe, you could use over-the-counter NSAIDs such as ibuprofen, naproxen, aspirin. You could also consider a steroid anti-inflammatory, and that's something you would have to get through your MD. If meds aren't your thing, there are natural substances, things that you can do, supplements. So people take fish oils, they take turmeric, and things like that. And that leads me for long-term success, diet is extremely important. Something like an anti-inflammatory diet, this is kind of like a Mediterranean type of a diet, which is essentially avoid processed foods, sugars, anything that comes in a box, a can, or a bag. If you can avoid those foods and eat a more whole diet, of course, that is going to help tremendously. And then finally, the last thing, get good rest, adequate sleep. I mean, and that goes for any type of healing. When anybody has an injury, you really want to get at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. So I hope this was helpful, gave you some insight. If you have any questions, as always, please leave a comment below, and I am happy to answer those for you.